One killed every steam locomotive in America without firing a single shot. Another was so fast it set a speed record that stood for over 60 years. A third was so enormous it weighed more than a fully loaded Boeing 747 and needed an articulated frame just to get around corners. These are not ordinary machines. These are the locomotives that changed wars, broke records, redefined engineering, and literally reshaped the way the entire world moves. Here are 10 that made history. Number 10. Nickel Plate Road 765. The Nickel Plate Road Berkshire-class locomotives were among the finest freight engines ever built in America, and number 765 is their living ambassador. Built in 1944 by the Lima Locomotive Works in Lima, Ohio, the 765 is a 284 Berkshire type designated as Class S2. It stands 15 feet 8 inches tall, weighs 404 tons, and can exceed 70 miles per hour. The Berkshire type was itself a landmark in locomotive design. Created by Lima engineer William E. Woodard, the 284 expanded on the 282 Mikado by adding a larger firebox supported by a four-wheel trailing truck. This superpower concept increased horsepower without increasing axle weight, and it revolutionized steam locomotive design in the United States. The Nickel Plate Road purchased 80 Berkshires, and they outperformed even the newest diesel locomotives on the railroad's fast freight schedules. Number 765 was retired from revenue service in the late 1950s and preserved in a Fort Wayne, Indiana park. The Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society restored it to full operation, and it ran its first excursion in 1979. Today, powered exclusively by volunteers, the 765 remains one of only a handful of mainline steam engines still operating in North America, producing 4,500 horsepower at 245 pounds per square inch of boiler pressure. Number 9. EMD FT Demonstrator No. 103. If one single locomotive can be credited with killing steam in America, it is the EMD FT, and specifically the Demonstrator Set No. 103. Built by General Motors Electro-Motive Corporation at La Grange, Illinois, the FT was released quietly in November 1939 for a nationwide demonstration tour that would change railroading forever. The FT was a 1,350 horsepower diesel-electric locomotive. Two units were semi-permanently coupled using a drawbar, creating a 2,700 horsepower set. By pairing two of these sets into an ABBA configuration, a single crew could command 5,400 horsepower, rivaling nearly any steam locomotive of the era. During its 11-month tour, the No. 103 set operated on 20 Class I railroads, covering 83,764 miles across 35 states. It outperformed steam locomotives on grade after grade, route after route. On the Santa Fe, an ABBA FT set demonstrated it could haul freight over Raton Pass and Cajon Pass without helper locomotives, something no single steam engine could do. 16 of the 20 railroads that hosted the demonstrator immediately placed orders. In total, 1,096 FT units were built before production ended in November 1945. The No. 103 set itself survived, serving on the Southern Railway until the early 1960s before being donated to the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, where it remains today. It is, quite simply, the diesel that ended the age of steam. Number 8. Norfolk and Western J-Class 611. The Norfolk and Western J-Class was the most powerful 484 steam locomotive ever produced, and number 611 was the crown jewel. Built at the N&W's East End shops in Roanoke, Virginia in May 1950 at a cost of $251,544, the 611 was one of the last mainline passenger steam locomotives built in the United States. The J-Class produced 80,000 pounds of tractive effort and had a top speed of 110 miles per hour. With 70-inch driving wheels and a boiler pressure of 300 pounds per square inch, these locomotives hauled the N&W's premier passenger trains, the Powhatan Arrow, the Pocahontas, and the Cavalier, across 676.6 miles between Norfolk, Virginia and Cincinnati, Ohio. The distinctive bullet nose streamlining designed in-house by N&W engineers made the J-Class one of the most visually striking locomotives ever built. The N&W was the last major American railroad to abandon steam, holding on until 1959 because its home-built locomotives were genuinely superior to early diesels on its mountainous routes. Number 611's survival is owed to attorney and railfan W. Graham Claytor Jr., who fought to save it from scrapping. It was restored to operation in 1982 for Norfolk Southern's steam program and ran excursions until 1994. A second restoration through the Fire Up 611 campaign returned it to service in 2015. As of 2025, it has been designated a Virginia Historic Landmark and added to the National Register of Historic Places. Number 7. Union Pacific Big Boy 4014. The Big Boy needs little introduction, but its history-making credentials demand a place on this list. Built by the American Locomotive Company in November 1941 at a cost of $265,174. Number 4014 was part of a class of 25 locomotives designed to haul heavy freight over Utah's Wasatch Range during World War II. The Big Boy is 133 feet long, weighs 1.2 million pounds with its tender, and uses a 4884 wheel arrangement with 2 sets of 8 driving wheels on an articulated frame. During testing on April 2, 1943, number 4014 generated 5,530 horsepower while pulling 65 freight cars. The Big Boys routinely hauled trains of up to 4,200 tons over grades that had previously required double heading. Number 4014 traveled 1,031,205 miles in revenue service before retirement on December 7, 1961. It sat on display at a museum in Pomona, California for over 5 decades until Union Pacific reacquired it in 2013 and completed a multi-year restoration. In May 2019, it returned to service to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. As of 2026, it is on a historic coast-to-coast tour celebrating America's 250th birthday, making it the world's largest operating steam locomotive. Number 6. Chesapeake and Ohio Allegheny H-8. The Allegheny holds a record that no locomotive has ever broken. During dynamometer car testing, a C&O H-8 recorded a peak reading of 7,498 drawbar horsepower at approximately 46 miles per hour. No one has ever published a higher dynamometer horsepower figure for any steam locomotive, making the Allegheny the most powerful reciprocating steam locomotive ever tested. 60 Alleghenies were built by Lima Locomotive Works between 1941 and 1948 for the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway. They were 2666 articulated locomotives weighing approximately 771,000 pounds for the engine alone, with a combined engine and tender weight approaching 1.2 million pounds. They also held the heaviest axle load of any steam locomotive at 86,700 pounds on the lead driving axle. The Alleghenies were designed to haul 11,500-ton coal trains over the Allegheny Mountains of Virginia and West Virginia, with one Allegheny pulling at the front and another pushing from behind. These enormous trains would blast at full throttle from White Sulphur Springs to the summit at Allegheny. Despite their extraordinary power, the diesel revolution rendered them obsolete within a decade. Retirement began in 1952, and by 1956 all were gone. Only 2 survive. Number 1601 at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, and number 1604 at the Virginia Museum of Transportation in Roanoke. Number 5. Pennsylvania Railroad Q2 Duplex. The Pennsylvania Railroad Q2 holds the absolute horsepower record for any steam locomotive ever tested on a static test plant. In the spring of 1945, Q2 number 6175 produced 7,987 indicated cylinder horsepower at the PRR's Altoona test plant. That figure has never been equaled. The Q2 was a 4464 duplex freight locomotive, meaning it split its driving wheels into 2 independent sets on a single rigid frame. 26 were built at the PRR's Juniata shops between 1944 and 1945. They were the largest non-articulated locomotives ever constructed. The PRR claimed a Q2 could pull 125 freight cars at 50 miles per hour, and in testing it was 78% more powerful than any previous PRR freight engine. But the Q2 was born at exactly the wrong moment. Dieselization was sweeping the industry, and the Q2's complex duplex drive was expensive to maintain. All were out of service by 1951 and scrapped by 1956. Not a single Q2 was preserved. Today, a non-profit organization called the T1 Trust is building a new PRR T1 duplex passenger locomotive, number 5550, from scratch with an estimated completion date of 2030. If completed, it will be the first new mainline steam locomotive built in the United States in over 7 decades. Number 4. Union Pacific 844. The living legend, Union Pacific 844, holds a distinction no other steam locomotive in North America can claim. It has never been officially retired. Built by the American Locomotive Company in December 1944, the 844 was the last steam locomotive delivered to Union Pacific Railroad. It is an FEF3 Class 484 Northern type capable of exceeding 100 miles per hour. The 844 pulled some of the most famous passenger trains in the American West, including the Overland Limited, the Los Angeles Limited, and the Portland Rose. When diesels took over passenger duties in the late 1950s, it was reassigned to freight service. It was nearly scrapped in 1960, but Union Pacific leadership recognized the value of keeping a working steam locomotive for public relations. From 1962 to 1989, it carried the number 8444 because a diesel had been given the number 844. When that diesel was retired, the steam engine got its number back. Since 1960, number 844 has run hundreds of thousands of miles as Union Pacific's goodwill ambassador, appearing at World Expos, museum openings, state fairs, and celebrations across the country. It remains on Union Pacific's active roster, making it the only steam locomotive never officially retired by a North American Class 1 railroad. That is why they call it the living legend. Number 3. Japanese Zero Series Shinkansens. On October 1, 1964, just 9 days before the opening ceremony of the Tokyo Summer Olympics, Japan launched the Tokaido Shinkansen between Tokyo and Osaka. It was the world's first high-speed rail line, and it changed transportation forever. The original Zero Series Shinkansen trains ran at speeds up to 210 km per hour, later increased to 220 km per hour. They reduced the journey time between Tokyo and Osaka from 6 hours and 40 minutes on conventional trains to just 4 hours initially, and eventually 3 hours and 10 minutes. The 552.6-kilometer route connected Japan's 4 largest cities, Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, and Osaka. What made the Shinkansen revolutionary was not just its speed, but its concept. Japan built an entirely separate, dedicated high-speed rail network, using standard gauge track, independent of the existing narrow gauge network. This allowed trains to run at consistent high speeds without interference from slower traffic. The idea that a country could build a completely new railway infrastructure for speed was considered radical in 1964. Today, it is the foundation of high-speed rail systems worldwide. The Tokaido Shinkansen has carried over 6.5 billion passengers since opening. During peak periods, up to 16 trains per hour operate in each direction with a minimum headway of just 3 minutes. The Shinkansen network has expanded to over 2,951 kilometers of lines with maximum speeds reaching 320 kilometers per hour. Perhaps most remarkably, in over 60 years of operation, there has never been a single passenger fatality due to a derailment or collision on the Shinkansen. It is arguably the most important single transportation innovation of the 20th century. Number 2. Southern Pacific 4449. Daylight, Southern Pacific 4449. Made history, not once but twice. Built by Lima Locomotive Works in May 1941. This GS4 Class 484 Northern type locomotive spent its early career hauling the famous Coast Daylight passenger train between San Francisco and Los Angeles in Southern Pacific's iconic red, orange, and black livery. It produced over 6,300 horsepower and could exceed 100 miles per hour with 80-inch driving wheels. After retirement in 1957, the 4449 was donated to Portland, Oregon, and sat outdoors at Oaks Amusement Park for nearly 2 decades, exposed to rain, vandalism, and theft. Its builder's plates and original whistle were stolen. Then, in 1974, volunteers launched an extraordinary rescue. They restored the 4449 to full working order, and in 1975 and 1976, it powered the American Freedom Train, a traveling bicentennial exhibition that toured all 48 contiguous states during the United States' 200th birthday celebration. The American Freedom Train was seen by millions of Americans, and the 4449 became one of the most photographed and celebrated locomotives in the country. It is the only surviving GS4 class locomotive out of 28 that were built. After the Freedom Train tour, the 4449 returned to excursion service and is now housed at the Oregon Rail Heritage Center in Portland. Its rescue from a vandalized park display and its triumphant coast-to-coast tour remains one of the greatest comeback stories in railroad history. Number 1. EMD DDA40X Centennial. Our number 1 spot goes to the most powerful diesel locomotive ever built on a single frame. The EMD DDA40X, nicknamed the Centennial, was built by General Motors' Electro-Motive Division exclusively for Union Pacific Railroad between 1969 and 1971. 47 units were constructed, numbered 6900 through 6946. The first unit, UP 6900, was delivered in April 1969, timed to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the completion of the first transcontinental railroad, which is how the class earned the Centennial name. Each DDA40X packed two 16-cylinder 645 E3A diesel engines, producing a combined 6,600 horsepower. They were 98 feet 5 inches long, so massive that the frames had to be fabricated by an outside contractor because they were too large for EMD's own factory. The DDA40X was the culmination of Union Pacific's decades-long quest for maximum single-unit horsepower, a drive that had begun with their gas turbine electric locomotives and continued through the DD35 and DD35A models. The Centennial also pioneered modular electronic control systems that were later incorporated into EMD's hugely successful Dash 2 line of locomotives, influencing diesel locomotive design for decades. Each Centennial ran approximately 2 million miles before retirement in the mid-1980s. 13 survive today in museums and collections across the country. Number 6936, the sole operating unit, was donated by Union Pacific to the Railroading Heritage of Midwest America in 2022 and returned to operation. The DDA40X was a machine that pushed diesel technology to its absolute limit, and it deserves its place as the locomotive that crowned the golden era of American railroading. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me which legendary locomotive impressed you the most. I will see you in the next one.